that this year, the 6th of January, is actually a Sunday. Because now we can have an Epiphany service actually on Epiphany. So, happy Epiphany, everyone.
Epiphany.
I can't turn it down slightly.
Sorry, what's Epiphany?
Well, hopefully you'll learn a bit more as I speak. Yeah, I can't really turn it down.
You need to stop eating the microphone because you're spitting into it.
That would be the easier option, Andrew.
Okay, I'll hold it here. How's that?
Thank you.
Right. So, now Happy Epiphany sounds a bit odd. So, how about Happy Old Christmas? A bit better, I guess. Or even Happy Little Christmas. Yes, it's also called Little Christmas. Or even Happy Women's Christmas. No, don't give me any funny looks. That was also a name for it. All names for the 6th of January. It's the day that marks the end of the Christmas season. But according to tradition, if you haven't taken down your decorations by now, you've got to leave them up. Depends on who you listen to. It's either sort of until the middle of the year or until next Christmas. So they'll be pretty manky by then, I expect. Anyway, so what is it with all these names for this one day? All of them have been a part of Christian traditions for some years. At one time, half of the so-called Christian world celebrated Christmas on the 25th of December, whereas the other half celebrated it on the 6th of January. It's difficult to imagine now because Christmas is 25th of December. And in Ireland, until quite recently, the school's Christmas holidays always ran up to the 6th of January, no matter what day it fell on. So it seems that Christmas is not just one day a year, despite the songs. It's a much longer affair, which to me sounds pretty good actually, a Christmas season of wine, merriment, song. But today we are talking about Epiphany, the name given to the 6th of January in more recent times. The day we celebrate 3 magi making an epic journey. Now I say magi, but other people say it's kings, some people say it's wise men. It's all a bit confusing because all 3 have been mentioned over the years in cards and films. And when I was young, I always thought that there must have been at least 6 men. 3 kings and 3 wise men. Because I just couldn't believe that kings could be wise men. Now, it seemed quite logical at the time. And given some of the biblical stories and some of the more historic stories about kings and rulers, it seemed pretty obvious that they couldn't. Maybe there were 9 men. 3 of each. 3 kings, 3 wise men, 3 magi. No idea. Magi were never mentioned when I was younger because it sounded too much like magicians, too much like black magic. But now it kind of makes me think of maybe there was like a Gandalf gang or something that went along. A couple of wizards together. So all in all, the whole story now seems to bring up so many more questions than I had before. And it's become so complicated that I decided to just sit and think about it for a while. Now, this is not a definitive version of events, nor do I claim to know what happened, or even who was involved. But this is my thinking on this favourite story. Firstly, I go with the Magi being the guys who were travelling. After all, the Magi were wise men. They were students of science and mysteries, of astronomy and the occult, of signs, portents, pretty much anything that was interesting, really. The true nerds of biblical times. They saw something in the sky, a phenomenon, that they read as signifying the birth of a great ruler or leader. We depict it as the Star of Bethlehem. But many modern scientists believe it was actually an alignment of a number of celestial bodies. When they're aligned in a certain way, a way that looks like it will never happen again, well, certainly not as far as their projections can predict, that in itself is quite incredible. Again, science now is just beginning to catch up with some of the older knowledge. They knew this had a significance, and they set out to find this special person, this grand ruler. The image on the slide is the usual image used for cards at this time of year. 3 men with camels travelling across deserts, following a star. But to be honest, I just don't buy it. If you were travelling such long distances, and these guys were travelling from what is now Iraq all the way over to Palestine, a journey that could have taken them anything up to 2 years, you don't just go with a camel each, especially if you're carrying valuable items like gold, frankincense and myrrh. You would have supply camels, maybe, protection, bodyguards, tents. After all, there weren't any motels around them. They could stop up at a Premier Inn and just say, well, I can have a room for the night, I'm on my way to see Jesus. Being wise, I'm sure they would have made sure they could complete the journey safely. Which I would say would be unlikely if it was just the 3 of them carrying very nickable items. In fact, I doubt they would have cleared the Iraq border, with all their presents intact. I'm sure they would have been robbed before they even got there. But anyway, they see this phenomenon in the sky. They read it as marking something significant. So significant that they set out on a truly epic journey. Now to me that's true faith. They're following a belief, holding on to it for so long on such an arduous journey. Truly awe-inspiring. And as we hear, they didn't pass unnoticed, because as they arrive in Palestine, Herod invites them in for a chat and a cuppa. Which is another thing that indicates to me that they were travelling either in quite big numbers or certainly great style. Otherwise, why would they merit the attention of a king? During which he asked them about their trip. Of course, these days he would just probably check out Facebook and easily figure it all out, because they'll all be popping selfies as they're crossing over. This encounter, of course, goes on to have truly tragic consequences. Because, although as we heard from Matthew, they avoided dropping in on their way home, they took a slight detour to avoid Herod. Herod went on to murder all the boy children who were aged up to 2 years old. All in an aim to try and get rid of the so-called king that was to come. And that in itself is another indication of how long their journey took. Because as they saw what we call the star at the time of Jesus' birth, and then began their journey, and after meeting Herod, he orders all boys of up to 2 years old to be killed. It kind of indicates that Jesus was probably within that age range by the time they got there. So the nice nativity scene of 3 kings, shepherds, manger, hay, straw, all that lot is probably a little bit off. I mean, by the time they arrive, Mary, Joseph and little Jesus were in a house. And Matthew actually says that. They drop off their gifts and on they go. As for shepherds, the shepherds who were sent by the angels were there earlier. There's a whole lot of stuff about where Jesus was born. But it seems unlikely to me that these 3 men, having travelled so far for so long, just popped up, said, "Oh, what a nice baby," or toddler by then. "Here, have some gifts, and I think we'll go home now." Especially if you've walked or ridden camels for like 2 years to get to a place. I mean, I would think they'd hang around for a while, have a look around the city or whatever, wander around, get a feel for the local life. Spend a few days at least having a rest before you start off. I mean, maybe they just hung around and watched Jesus the toddler wobbling around the house, falling over, bumping his head, all that good stuff. But eventually, it becomes time to head home. And they get a warning to avoid Herod. so they take a slight detour and skip out without incident. Heading back the way they came. Job done, presents delivered, Messiah met, lies fulfilled. But all that's a lot to take in. So I'm going to briefly summarise my view of the story. Scientists saw a truly unique celestial phenomenon. Being nerds, they knew it meant something special. And the signs pointed to Bethlehem. They get a group together, choose some valuable gifts to match the event. After all three gifts are ones you normally give to a king or to present to a deity. And set off to find him. They travel for ages, get a royal invite to tea, find the new leader toddling around a house, hang out for a while, then head home via a slight detour to avoid trouble. Bush, done. No stable, no manger, no shepherds, no moving star that floats then stops, but an incredible mix of faith and science, joining together to lead clever men to a particular place and a very particular person. So that, to me, seems to be the real story here. And in some ways that's even more miraculous than the common interpretation of Matthew's account. With faith and science joined together so closely that they guide these clever men for 2 years across deserts to find one particular toddler. And with that, a life-changing experience. And it's a journey that still sparks imaginations today. Scientists are still investigating it and arguing about everything to do with the journey, how long it took, where they went, and particularly about the Star of Bethlehem. So it's still intriguing modern-day scientists. Some of them have spent 10 more years studying just this one journey. So, in closing, I just want to say, whatever we choose to call today, however we choose to look at it or interpret the stories behind it, to me, the 6th of January is a day that marks a truly incredible act of faith, a truly spiritual journey. Thank you.